Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of my replay analysis series. In this episode we will be covering a replay of Jungle Warwick. Before I begin with the episode, I would like to apologize for the weird graphical errors of last episode. I have narrowed it down to it is Baron replay, so until I can get that sorted out, I won't be taking any more Baron replay files. For now, I will be focusing on mainly using op.gg files, so if you have any of those, I'd love to have them. If you're having trouble figuring it out, just PM me a message either through my email at the end of this video, which you probably already have by now, or my Reddit account, which I'll also post at the end of this video, and you'll probably see because that's the main way people are getting to this video. Otherwise, again, I want to thank you for all the constructive criticism and comments and feedback and all the replays you guys are sending me. The response has been pretty overwhelming. With that being said, let's get to the episode. In this first clip, we're going to look at Warwick's first clear. It's a really long clip and I have a lot of information, so you're going to have to bear with me. For junglers, time is money, and the thing we'll be noticing about this Warwick is he's extremely inefficient and indecisive, and it costs himself a lot of seconds that can be used ganking or farming. Right off the bat, he's late to start his own red buff. That's really huge. These 3 seconds are 3 seconds he can't really get back. The other thing is, he isn't going to smite out right off the bat. He was guarding his own red, so he can be pretty sure Lee Sin's not going to try like a late invade or anything. It's extremely risky for Lee Sin, and the payoff isn't there, but getting your smite down early allows you to take blue that much faster. It allows you to go camp, small camp, big camp, and it allows you to really quickly get to 3 and be able to pressure lanes fast. The other main thing is I'm really confused by Warwick starting at red, but we'll get to that in a second. Right here we see second Warwick tiny time management mistake. You walk past Wraiths thinking you won't do them and then turn around to go back to Wraiths. Wraiths in Warwick's first clear are really slow. They're pretty much only done for Warwick if you can't find a gank somewhere on the map, or there's just really nothing to pressure. Because you don't have any AoE, this camp takes a really long time when you don't have high damage, and you're pretty much just slowing yourself down. It's not giving experience worth the time for you at this moment. But back to starting on red buff as Warwick. As Warwick, you don't really have any gap closers, but you still need to apply pressure early. And to do that, you pretty much have to gank top and mid lane, because bot lane's just really hard to gank. They have usually wards up, there's 2 people. The advantage of a 3v2 versus a 2v1 isn't quite the same, and you just have trouble getting on 2 people. So it's better to position yourself, like end up in between the top and mid lane. So if you're on blue side, starting at red is good, whereas when you're on purple side, starting at blue is better, because you end up where you want to be. Again, you take another camp in between taking your blue buff. You're slowing yourself down so much. If you look at the mini-map, you see that Lee Sin has already finished both his camps and starting to apply pressure. You're still not level 3, whereas Lee Sin is level 3 and putting more pressure, starting to put pressure on the map. Right here, again, indecisive. You're not sure if you want to go white or blue, and you take a couple more seconds off of your first clear. All in all, your clear could have been done probably in 30 seconds less than what you did it, and you would have ended at about the same level. And you would have been on a better side of the map if you would have played a little bit smarter. So I think that's a huge thing to work on. And I know Warwick is a farming jungler, but it's still important to get both your buffs down so that for the rest of their game, the buffs are spawning at an even interval with everything else, so that you can plan out your ganks, you can plan out everything else, you can give your mid laner the blue buff, And right here, you're actually going to walk bottom for a gank. A gank that should have never worked. 1, it should have been warded, and 2, they easily could have gotten away with this the second they see you. But Sona, for some reason, turns around and walks, instead of toward her tower, into the river after getting slowed, and Morgana hits a good binding. This is a gank that never should have been, that you got really lucky that it did work. Good on you for coming bottom to alleviate some pressure, but it wasn't a high odds situation for you to happen, like for it to work out for you. As a jungler, you're playing the highest probability odds. Although it works in one game, it probably won't work in most. Although you do make a good play here and help your bot lane by warding up for them. So, you know, ending strong, I guess. So we have a minute or so later, and you've just finished wolves and you're about to go do your wraiths. Your mid laner was just ganked and is fairly low, and needs help pushing out the wave versus Orianna. She's actually pinged her own wave a couple times, but my pings aren't really showing up except for retreat pings. I'm not sure why. But instead of helping her, you do wraiths again, which is really, really slow. And unfortunately for both you and her, she stays in lane way too long, and Orianna ends up picking up a really easy kill. But after she gets the kill and there's a huge wave pushing into the tower, again, the indecisiveness. You know the right play in the end, but it takes you a couple seconds to get there, and you end up missing 3 creeps from this wave just because you didn't react quickly. And I don't understand how you couldn't have reacted quickly to that, because while you're at Wraith Camp there, you should have been looking mid. While you're doing your camps as a jungler, your mini-map or your map shouldn't be focused on yourself. It doesn't take a lot to actually clear a camp as a jungler once you get going and you have a high enough level. So you can actually move your map around and focus on the lanes and see who needs help, see where the waves are going to be, who needs a gank, stuff like that. So there really wasn't any excuse to not go straight to that mid lane after Kayle died, let alone not go there before she died to help her clear out that wave. Another thing to note that's really important to junglers is time. It's almost 7 minutes, and at 7 minutes a lot of things happen. And higher up junglers will punish you for not backing before 7 minutes and not being in the right place around 7 minutes. So right at 7 minutes around, your first buff that you took comes up, right? Both your mid lane and your top lane have already given up kills, either to jungle pressure or solo. And so their Orianna has backed, and so has their Lee Sin. So in a 2v2 fight between Orianna and Lee Sin and you and Kayle, you would lose. I understand what you're trying to do right now, which is rush for 6 and get that big power spike Warwick gets at 6, but you're not going to hit level 6 as it is before 7 minutes. So by not backing here, you're really risking your own buff control. Another really important thing to note is when you have blue hungry mids like Orianna, you have to be aware as a jungler that their jungler is going to try to set up a gank right around 7 minutes so that they can snowball that into stealing your blue or securing their own safely. So you should be really careful for a gank around 7 minutes on your mid laner. And sure enough, Lee Sin comes in for the gank on Kayle right at 7 minutes. I'm really surprised actually they didn't look for your blue. The funny thing is you end up looking for your blue, which leads me to believe you usually start blue buff, but you started red to accommodate Lee Sin. But yeah, you need to be really careful about when you should be backing and when you shouldn't. In a couple seconds, we're going to see you waste a little bit more time. You're going to walk to a blue buff that you know isn't up and sort of go in between blue buff and white for a couple seconds. And again, time is money on junglers, and you're wasting a lot of it. So make tighter trips through the jungle and have more mindset behind it. So far you've only really pressured one lane, and it was a very fluke incident that even got you the kill. And now your top lane has died for the second time. So it's probably time to head up there. In this clip we're going to talk a little bit about pressure and backing. It's 9 minutes in the game right now and you still haven't backed for boots. I guarantee if you would have backed at some point while clearing that jungle and bought boots, you would have been able to clear the same amount or more, and your ganks would have been more effective. There really is no excuse for backing, especially not before 9 minutes. Most higher tier junglers at least back before 6:30. 9 minutes is sort of ridiculous. The other thing is you're not going to give Kayle blue here, which is a debatable call. She is 0-2, but to be fair to her, she has been ganked 4 times by Lee Sin, and the only thing she's seen of you is when she was dead in lane and you covered her lane for a couple seconds. That being said, she has seen more of you than top, who doesn't even know you exist. The only person on your team who's even seen you for pressure is bottom, and it was sort of a fluke gank. Right here, you're going to be indecisive with your movement again. You're going to start pathing one way and then switch at the last second. Whereas I think your original path was really good. If you were going to force through try, that was actually really good. It would have put you in a great position. Instead, you take the long way around and barely get an assist. If Sona ult wouldn't have hit Twitch, you wouldn't have even been in time for an assist on that kill. Good follow-up on the Sona. Good dive, good commitment, good follow-through. If you would have had boots, you would have ended up taking less damage. Hint, hint. But otherwise, good. I mean, you've picked up 3 kills for your team bot lane. I can't really argue with it. But it would be nice to see you put a little bit more pressure like top and mid. Especially since Warwick, early, is pretty much only good top lane for ganks. So it's really weird to see you not even attempt it. In this clip, we're going to watch a 2v2. But for the main focus I want you guys to look at is cooldowns and mana. So when the gank starts, you are where you dependably always are, farming those good old wraiths. But this time you do a good job of getting off wraiths and coming to help Kayle. So you get yourself in between her and Lee Sin, and you're able to turn this gank around. Kayle walks a little bit too far forward and ends up having to ult herself because she gets ignited. So at this point you know Orianna has no ignite and she has no mana. Lee Sin's also really low. So when he Qs onto you here, the only thing you need to worry about is not getting it kicked into tower. But he gets around on you. The second thing is, there was no reason for you to flash there. Orianna had no mana to speak of, and Lee Sin had just used his Q. You actually weren't in any danger. I know instinctively when you get kicked into a tower near 2 opponents, you're freaking out if you're low. But they really had no follow-up, and so you end up just burning a flash for no reason. Also, be really wary of people's ultimates and how they want to use them against you. Like right there shouldn't have been any way for Lee Sin to get around on you, considering you had the movement speed debuff on him. Or movement speed buff, because they were low. So in this clip, we're going to be looking at one of the only team fights of the game. Although most of the important parts of solo queue jungling happen pre-15 minutes, I thought it would still be important to give you guys like a team fight and break down what you should be doing as, you know, Warwick, I guess. In this grouping of 4, you are the tank. So when you get onto Volibear here, you shouldn't be so afraid to go into melee and get tossed, because him tossing you is a win for your team. Instead, you sort of hug the wall and walk back and forth. Right here, you guys need to realize that it is most likely a 4v5. Their top laner is here, and everybody else but your top laner is here on your team. So you have to assume that the matching counterparts are also here. Right here, Twitch gets engaged on, but he flashes out of the Lee Sin slow and debuff. And at this point, you realize it's a 4v5, and there's really no reason to engage. Not only that, but you engage in a way where none of your team can really follow up. Nobody's in range, and you're not really near any good targets. So, yeah, you do ult the Orianna and make it so she can't ball your team, but she wasn't even ranged to ball your team in the first place. You end up just getting popped and baiting Morgana into getting popped as well. All in all, really sloppy engage on your part, and a bit of a throw for your team. Your team ends up losing a team fight they never should have been in because you engaged. So, be careful engaging into 4v5s and know that your Xin Zhao is top, so you aren't looking for a fight. In this clip, we're going to watch the final team fight of the game, and it's all going to happen really fast, but you commit some cardinal sins here. First off, doing red buff without first warding the Baron when you have wards in your inventory and Baron is open. Second off, smiting red buff at 27 minutes in the game when Baron is up and it's a close game. Those are huge no-nos. Like, huge. Like, if the enemy team had a ward on that red buff, and you would have smited it, they would have gone for Baron anyway. It's a free Baron for them at that point. Lee Sin can already usually outsmite Warwick with his Q combo. And the horrible truth right here is Morgana wards up while you're like AFKing in the bush and you find out they are doing Baron. At this point, you need to call your team off. Guys, I screwed up. I smited red buff. We can't win this fight. They're going to get Baron. And then we're going to lose. Kale's not here. We have to back off. But instead, you lead the charge in with some, I don't know, like prey mentality that you'll be able to out-Q like Lee Sin smite Q. So you run in there and pretty much bait your entire team into dying here. And sure enough, they all die, and you end up losing the game. We're going to end this episode a little faster than normal because of max time limits on YouTube. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Thank you guys for all the feedback. Hopefully you guys can give me some more feedback, send me some more replays. I want to thank Warwick for this replay. I have a couple little things to say to you. I'll say them privately. I'll also post them in the Reddit thread, like my little like tips that I'd give you. going forward. Otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody.